Hello everyone, and welcome to lesson 10 of my Python for Beginners full course program. Today we're going to be talking about creating our own functions so that we can write code and then reuse that code so that we don't have to rewrite that code every single time we want to use it. We'll also be talking about how to create your own modules by utilizing the files. So that way our code will be out of the way whenever we write our functions or other variables, and we'll store that in a different file, and then we can use that information in our main.py. That's enough introduction, let's get right into it.
Pause for effect.
So we've worked with lots of different kinds of functions thus far, such as string functions, like we had .title if we wanted to titleize a string, or .upper or lower, lots of different kinds of functions. Today we are going to introduce functions by creating a very simple math function. When we declare a function, it's kind of like creating your own variable, such as if we did name equals SalteeKiller, that's how you do it with a variable. But in a function, you do it like this. DEF for define, space, now you can name your function however you'd like. I'm going to call this addition because I want to do a mathematical equation, okay? And then just like what we do with our conditions, we're going to have a colon, and then when we hit enter, it's going to have this indentation defining our block of code for our function. Now, I just want to test my function just to make sure it's working. So there's not going to be any functionality at this point. I'm just going to print hello from my function. And watch this. If I hit run, nothing's going to happen yet. It's because when your code reads this definition, it goes, okay, there's a function called addition. I'm going to stick that in my back pocket, and I'm going to skip it for now until the coder wants me to use it. So what we have to do is we now have to come somewhere outside of our function, and we need to say, now let's run that. So I'm just going to say addition, and since that is a function, we're going to have our parentheses. Now if I hit run, it says hello from my function now. But what's cool is that I can have as much code in here as I want, but then I can have a function call as many times as I want throughout my entire program. And check it out, I'm now using reusable code. So you need to have a function definition, defining what it's called, what it does, and then this is called the function call. So that will run your function. Now let's actually have our function do something. I'm going to send it two numbers. I'm going to give it 6 and 4. So when you add 6 and 4 together, you should get 10. Right now, if I hit run, I get this error. Now let's not ignore this error. Let's see what it says at the bottom. It says the function addition takes 0 positional arguments, but 2 were given. That's true. Up here, I told my function not to receive any, but I gave some anyway. So up here, I'm going to change the rules where we can receive something. Now, I don't ever know what that information is going to be exactly. I don't know what numbers I'm going to be sending it. So I'm going to create some variables. You can call these whatever you want, but I'm going to call this num1, comma, num2. Now, if I hit run, that error goes away, and then it says hello from my function again. So very good job with that. Again, if this is too fast, feel free to slow down the video using the YouTube controls, or go ahead and pause the video.
A few inches later.
Once you're ready, let's actually use those numbers. I'm going to call this new variable total, and I'm just going to take whatever num1 is, add it to num2. And if I print total here, you can see the answer is now 10. So I can change these numbers however I'd like, and it's going to add them both together. Very good. Now when you saw that error before, so such as if I added another number, it'll give me that same error. It'll say that it takes 2 positional arguments, but 3 were given this time. Positional arguments, what that is your position of your arguments matters. 60 is at the first position, right? So if I look at my function definition, this is also the first position, so 60 is going to be assigned to num1. So if I just printed num1, it will say 60 because that's the first thing. Let me get rid of this 5 first. Okay, and then if I did num2, it'd be 4. That's important to know because what if you're actually sending a string, maybe a person's first name and their last name? Well, if this was called last name, this was called first name, the first name is going to be assigned to last name, and we don't want that. So just keep in mind that it does matter the order. Just make sure it's matching up the same order up here, however you'd like. Now in this case, it doesn't really matter because these two numbers, they're just going to be added together either way, but very good with that. Now what we want to do is we actually want to print the value of addition. So I'm actually going to put my function in a print statement, but watch what happens. If I do that, it still says 60, it still runs it just fine, but then it gives me this weird piece of data. It says none. Your print is trying to print a value. We didn't give it a value. Addition has no value. Has some kind of functionality and it worked, but it's returning none because there's no value. So usually we want to give our functions a value so that we can use it, store it, however we'd like. Usually when you're done with your function, you want to return something. So instead of print, I'm going to say return. Now if I hit run, it says 60 and that none just went away because this has a value of 60. Now that's not adding anymore. I still need to return my total. So now the value of addition is 64. For example of why we want to store it is because what if we have the user have a birthday? What if their age is 12? And then I'll say birthday equals, now I can say addition. I'm going to say their age, and I'm going to add 1 since it's their birthday. Okay. Now I can print, even using string interpolation, you are now birthday years old. Okay. So the age was 12, and I sent addition 12 and 1. It added those together since it's a birthday. Now that a value is being assigned to birthday, I can now use that value. Now it's saying you are 13 years old because 13 was assigned to birthday. So that's a reason why we want to use return, so we can use those values. And you can do the same thing for all other functions. For example, if I wanted to say subtraction, or I can even do multiplication. Let's do multiplication real quick. And it's going to look pretty similar. Let's call this multiplication. And we can still say num1 and num2. I know that we used this before, but this is a different scope. This num1 does not know about this num1. Same with this num2 and this num2. So since it's in a different scope, we are okay to use it. There's not going to be any problems. It's not going to be updating anything there. Okay. So we're going to say total equals whatever num1 is times whatever num2 is. And then I'm going to return that total. So if I come outside of my function and do my function call, I'm going to print multiplication, and I'm going to give it 3 and 9. So if I hit run now, it says 27. Perfect. So congratulations if you went through that. What we're going to do now is get this code out of the way. As you can see, these were very simple functions. There was only 2 lines of code inside of our functions. But just by having simple functions like this, it still takes up a significant amount of space on my main.py. So I'm going to take these functions and put them in a different file, and then I'm going to import that file into my main so that I can still use that information without it taking so much space. So come over here to your files, and we're going to add a new file. Make sure you're not adding a new folder or directory. Make sure to add a new file. And you can call this whatever you want. I'm not going to call it math.py because the name math has already been taken, so I can't import that. But I'm just going to call this salty math.py. You can call that whatever you want as long as that name has not already been taken. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this code and I'm going to paste it into my new file. Once that's pasted, what I want you to do is make sure you get rid of any of your print statements. I want it just to say your function definitions, and that is it. If I do this multiplication thing again, and I come back to my main.py, which should now be empty, if I, well, we can do this. So here's my multiplication. If I hit run, it says the name multiplication is not defined. It does not know what that is because this file is a completely different scope. This file has no idea about information on this file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import that file or all that information by saying from the name of your file. In my case, from salty math import. Now I can import any variables or any function names. So I'm going to do a multiplication right now. I'm going to say import multiplication. And now if I hit run, now it's working. And I can use multiplication however I'd like. Now I can change these numbers, 4 and 10. So that should say 40 now. And it does. And if I wanted to add more, I can say add in addition. So now I should be able to use my addition. So addition, I'll do 34 and 6. Oh, I guess that's also 40. But yes, so that is working just fine now. Now notice that my multiplication, that's a lot to type. And as you've watched me type that out, I was kind of hesitant to make sure I was spelling it correctly because it needs to be spelled exactly the same. If there's ever a function that is maybe too long, whether it's your own function or someone else's, something you can do is use an alias. An alias takes the name of a function or a variable and we can name it something else, just like this. So I'm going to say from salty math import multiplication as, I'll just say mult for multiply. You can call that whatever you want. You can even say it's just n. And if I come over here, I can just say n. That might look kind of weird, but it's going to work the same. And I got rid of my addition. That's why there's an error. So it doesn't like that. Okay, or I can call it mult. And now if I hit run, it does not know what m is. So I need to say mult. And that's so much easier for me to write throughout my program. If I want to use my multiplication multiple times throughout my program, it might be a good idea to use an alias for this. Congratulations if you went through that. If you like these videos, please drop a like and don't forget to subscribe so that you are notified whenever my new videos come out. If you have any requests, please let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much. Happy coding.